Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Takes on the Yard. I'm your host, Minram Apfumo, and this is a podcast about sports, politics, pop culture, and drama. Yes, I'm adding drama to the list of things we will be talking about. Eventually, today we're not talking about that. Today we're talking about the 2023 MLB draft. But before I get into that, I want you all to notice something different about today's episode. If you didn't get it, I'm going to help you out a little bit. Y'all see that TV right there? That's my logo. That's my logo on that TV. Yes, we are in a new studio. We are at the Atlanta Voice newspaper headquarters, recording today's episode. Big thank you to the Atlanta Voice, and big thank you to Miss Janice Ware, the publisher of the Atlanta Voice, and Mr. James Washington, the president of the Atlanta Voice. I'm very grateful for everything that you all have done for me this past year, from when I was an intern with you all last summer to now. I'm very grateful, and thank you all so much for allowing me to do this today. Actually, with the opportunity that you just presented me, I'm going to take that opportunity. Thank you. I have a soundboard now. Last episode, I said I was going to have sound effects. Very next episode, I have sound effects. I keep my promises. I keep my promises. On to today's topic. On July 9th, the 2023 MLB draft took place and concluded on July 11th. Now, before I tell you all how many players from historical black colleges and universities were drafted this year, I will give you all a second to guess. That's enough time. 3 players were drafted from historical black colleges or universities this year. Now, I can act like I'm upset about it, but honestly, I'm content. I really am. I can't be too mad about it because it's an increase. It is an increase from last year. In 2021, only 1 player was drafted. 2022, 2 players were drafted. Those 2 players being outfielder Jonathan Thomas from Texas Southern University, and he was drafted by the Washington Nationals in the 19th round. And catcher John Garcia from Grambling State University, who was drafted by the Houston Astros in the 19th round as well. I really can't be upset about it. The 3 players this year that were drafted were right-handed pitcher Nolan Santos from Bethune-Cookman University, who was drafted in the 7th round by the Minnesota Twins. He was the first player from an HBCU drafted this year. Right-handed pitcher Xavier Meacham from North Carolina A&T was drafted in the 10th round by the Miami Marlins. And lastly, Delaware State alum and second baseman Trey Page was drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals in the 17th round. Now, once again, I'm not stopping anyone from being upset about it, but it's always good to take a positive away from every situation. So we're going to take some positives away from this situation. 1, the same way that the 2 draft picks from the 2022 draft showed us that there is a lot of talent in HBCUs, is the same way that these 3 players are doing. And hopefully we will see an increase in HBCU players being drafted. Now, I imagine that there will be an increase. There's no way that we can go back. We've only been growing since 2021. I don't think next year we're going to see another 1 player drafted or 2 players drafted. I think we'll see another 4 or 5 players drafted. It should be more than that, but we're growing. We're growing, and we have to be content with that right now. But I will acknowledge how much talent there is at HBCUs, even outside of baseball. Because I remember a few years ago when Deion Sanders was the head coach of Jackson State, there was only one player drafted from an HBCU, and he was very vocal about that. One player drafted to the NFL from an HBCU. My apologies. He was very vocal about that. And there is a lot of talent at HBCUs for football, for baseball, for basketball. But what is the reason that these players are being overlooked? Well, exposure. What can be done differently, and what is currently being done, and what's been trying to have been done, is getting these players exposure. And back to baseball, that is something that has been very important when it comes to HBCU baseball. For example, this year on July 7th, the first inaugural HBCU Swingman Classic took place in Seattle, Washington at the Seattle Mariners Stadium before the All-Star Game. The Swingman Classic was hosted by Hall of Famer Ken Griffey Jr., with help, of course, from the MLB Players Association and the MLB Players Alliance. Now, if you don't understand how major this was and how major it actually is, because this is not a one-time thing, this is going to be something every year. Thank you so much to Ken Griffey and the MLB Players Association and MLB Players Alliance. 30 players from Division I HBCUs got a chance to participate in the All-Star Game Stadium this year on a national scale. That's major. This game was broadcasted on MLB Network. MLB Network is broadcasted all around the world, if I'm not mistaken. I know it's definitely some places in the world where you can watch MLB Network. There has to be. Baseball fans everywhere. But this is major. This is a very major. There are so many players from other conferences like the SEC and the ACC that get a chance to be seen all the time on major networks, specifically ESPN. And it shows. It shows that when you're seen, people get to see how good you are. Because check this out. This year's draft, the 2023 MLB draft, this year's draft, and just in the first 10 rounds, 49 players from the SEC were drafted. And second for the most picks in the draft, the ACC. Now you can imagine who had the most picks, because I just said it. The SEC, 49 picks just in the first 10 rounds. That is crazy. But if you don't think the SEC runs the MLB, you're mistaken. They do. And it's not a bad thing. It's the great thing. It's showing that the schools and these programs are doing their job to develop these players and make sure these players are seen. Now, what's the difference between them and historical black colleges and universities in conferences like the MEAC and the SWAC and the SIAC and the CIAA? Exposure. See how it comes back? You don't see SWAC baseball on ESPN every week. You don't see MEAC baseball on ESPN every week. You for sure don't see CIAA baseball. You for sure don't see SIAC baseball. But why? Honestly, why? And then once again, I'll mention how important that Swingman Classic hosted by Ken Griffey was and how important it is. And I'd be wrong not to mention that each player represented one of the 17 HBCUs in attendance. That is just, you can look at it from a cultural standpoint. But you can also look at it as a moving forward standpoint. This is evolution. This is evolution for historical black colleges and universities. This is evolution for the opportunities that these players are now being presented with. And if you think that the 3 players that were drafted this year from historical black colleges and universities, if you think that that Swingman Classic did not play a role into them being drafted this season, I don't know what to tell you, because it definitely did. It definitely did. There's no way that it didn't. I never got the luxury of playing a major game in a major league stadium. I play baseball. I've never got the luxury. You know, I'm from New York, and the public school teams, when they would go to the championship, they would play in Yankee Stadium. Some teams played in the Brooklyn Cyclone Stadium. Some teams like outside of New York, Atlanta Braves, they played in Truist Park. So on and so forth. When you're under those lights and when you're on that field, even when there's not a lot of people at the field, because most of the time it's not. It's about 200, 300 people there to watch you all play. Nonetheless, even when you're on that stage, you feel the pressure. There was pressure on these young men going to the Seattle Mariners Stadium and performing the way they did. There was pressure on them, and they still performed. Not just talking about the 3 draft picks. I'm talking about everybody that participated in this Swingman Classic. Everybody performed on a big stage. The stadium wasn't full, but like I said, doesn't matter. You're under bright lights. You're in front of Ken Griffey Jr. and Andre Dawson and everyone else. You're in front of MLB legends and whoever else was there, because there were definitely scouts there, and you performed. That's major. And once again, it shows how talented these players are. And you would get to see them do that on a weekly basis if they had the same exposure that other conferences get. Point blank simple. Point blank simple. I remember it was either Ken Griffey or Harold Reynolds. I'm pretty sure it was Harold Reynolds. When he was broadcasting at the game, at the Swingman Classic, he spoke about a player who was batting over 300, over a 300 batting average. And he had to say, like, these stats are real, guys. This is not something out of a video game. Because people don't understand, once again, how much talent there is at HBCUs. I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm serious. People don't understand that. So when they see that, they think these HBCUs are small scale schools. So when they see that there are players out there, that multiple players out there from all HBCUs batting over 300 with 10 to 12 home runs and a bunch of RBIs and a bunch of stolen bases, they think like, whoa, this can't be right. Sounds like something out of a video game. Nope, it's not. It's not anything out of a video game. These guys are legit. Just as legit as everybody else from those conferences that get more exposure than historical black colleges and historical black colleges and universities. I'm getting passionate. I'm messing up my words, but you get what I'm saying. And look, it's not just Ken Griffey. It's not just Ken Griffey doing it, because I would be wrong not to mention the work of minority baseball prospects, or MVP. I'm going to be a little biased here. I have a lot of respect for MVP. I'm playing in their baseball collegiate league right now here in Atlanta. However, I have been around a lot of higher ups. I've been around the CEO of MVP, Alex Weiss, and it's not just any old thing. He's actually, him and the entire organization is actually doing their best to get exposure for HBCU players. They provide opportunities to minorities too in the game of baseball. But specifically, since we're talking about HBCU players, every year MVP hosts what they call the MVP All-Star Game. They have a showcase, they have a home run derby, and then they have the All-Star Game. But with this, they invite players from all HBCUs who have had great seasons, and they give them a chance to showcase that talent in front of scouts. And on top of that, it's not just a few people in an organization. This is large. This is a big scale. They're all around the country now. And then they also have people from the MLB Players Association and the Players Alliance directly involved. Marvin Freeman, former MLB pitcher. You might know the name. He's great. He's a legend to me. He went to Jackson State University. I got a chance to be coached by him and interview him a few years ago. He's a legend to me. Another legend to me, the 2-time stolen base champion, the 4-time Gold Glover, the ALCS MVP, the 2-time All-Star, and the 1995 World Series champion with the Atlanta Braves, Marquise Grissom, who also attended an HBCU, Florida A&M University, or FAMU. Also, this is just to name a few people that are directly involved with MVP. There are a lot more. And these guys are serious. They mean serious business. And they really don't have to go out of their way to try to help minorities and HBCU players get to where they were. They don't. But they choose to do it because they are good people. Lastly, like I said, the last person that I'm going to mention, former MLB catcher and Grambling State Hall of Famer, Lenny Webster. I had the privilege to be coached by Lenny Webster a few years ago when I was in high school, coming up through the Hank Aaron Invitational, which is something else that actually needs to be mentioned. MLB Development, they are doing their best with the Hank Aaron Invitational, Dream Series, and every other program that they have to get exposure to all players and of all colors who may not have gotten the exposure that they deserve, and it helps them get into Division I programs, and then hopefully they go on to be in the MLB. But like I said, I've had the privilege to be interviewed by Lenny Webster. I've had the privilege to be coached by Lenny Webster, and I interviewed Lenny Webster last year. And I can tell you that all three of these men are inspiring. They are inspiring. You know, you sit in a room with them, or you just have a conversation with them, you are ready to do something. Whether it's go out and work harder, playing baseball, or going out to help those that play baseball and helping them get to where they need to be. So, once again, the work that is being done to get more HBCU students drafted, it's being done, and we are seeing improvements. But as we support these players, we, the fans, the supporters, we have to help them get exposure as well. We have to help advertise games. We have to help advertise the players, and we have to help advertise the events. We have to show up and invest in these programs because it's already difficult for HBCUs to invest in the programs themselves. They have so much to invest in those campuses, let alone a small program where, honestly, baseball is not a popular sport as it was amongst African Americans. That's a whole other conversation, but I'll just quickly say that a lot of people aren't playing baseball because of the prices. Baseball is very expensive now, and it's hard to stay in the game with not much money. I'm not calling anybody poor. When I say not much money, I mean not much money. Baseball is very expensive. And it's really unfortunate. But yeah, we as a people have to invest in these programs as well. We have to donate. I know a lot of teams do fundraisers every year, and fundraising is a great way to help out. Continue to fundraise, continue to donate, continue to just put money into these programs. Because like I said, once again, broken record. There is a lot of talent at these HBCUs. You invest in these programs, you're investing in their talent, you're investing in their development, and you're investing in their chance to make it to the MLB. And then you can say, yeah, I hope that kid gets to the MLB. You may not have directly helped him, but hey, your contributions will mean a lot. They will. Our contributions will mean a lot. We can help grow these baseball programs, and we can help do it for the better. And I promise, we will see an increase in HBCU talent in the MLB. But that's all for me today. I was going to get into some other topics, but I felt this was the most important topic, and I wanted all my attention to be on this specifically. So, I thank you all for joining me today, and maybe I'll be back here next time. Never know. I like this place. I don't really want to leave. What do you think? But it's been great. It's been good. It's been amazing. But it's going to be better. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to think of a cool outro. Anyway, have a good one, everyone. Be safe. Have fun in life. Take away the positives from every situation. Invest in your HBCU programs. And peace.